Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's Daily Brief. Woohoo! Party! It is Monday morning. Monday. Hello, everyone. And we're live on YouTube. RationalInvestor.com's Daily Brief. Woohoo! Party! Put that on pause just so we. Well. So good morning. I understand, of course, first thing Monday morning, lots of groggy eyes. It's the beginning of the week. It's the end of October. Kind of a sleepy beginning to our day, especially in crypto. After the weekend, I'm sure people were kind of pleased to see a little bit of a pause in price action here. But here we are, Monday the 28th, coming up on the end of October. Happy Halloween, I suppose, for those people that celebrate Halloween. And I do understand there are a few, I was listening to Bloomberg over the weekend, there's a few of the Asian markets that are closed today. So, I mean, on balance, most of the world is active here first thing Monday morning. But I do understand that maybe some of the Asian participants are going to be on pause. And actually, I was a bit surprised to see. I don't know whether you guys are keeping tabs of it, but that Hong Kong situation is quickly deteriorating. And I saw there's like open skirmishes now with the protesters and police. So, man, things are getting absolutely out of control there. But anyway, heading into TRI land and our offering here this morning. My apologies, everybody, and I guess that's showing today's. I I did almost a 2-hour broiler chicken show yesterday. But silly Brian, I forgot to post the video on the site right after I did it, and I had to head out to Liam because the show was so long that somebody on the site reminded me first thing this morning that I had forgot to post it. So my apologies, everybody, but it is in the daily brief list now. So just an FYI there. But it being Monday, it means that we have the Sjord report, the Lego report, coming at us fast and furious here on Monday. And Sjord's on the call. How you doing this morning, sir?
I'm doing well, thank you, Brian.
Good,
How are
good.
you doing?
Oh, can't complain. Besides, everybody knows how the rest of that line goes.
How
Um,
does your Halloween costume look like?
Actually, I haven't done the Halloween thing probably in, geez, probably a good 20 years. Um, but I guess Halloween is landing on a funny day this week. So I got the impression I was out socializing on the weekend and people were dressed up in funny costumes and stuff. I got the impression people sort of celebrated if they were going to have Halloween parties over the weekend. But it sort of lands on a funny time of the week this year, so I didn't really see too much Halloweeny stuff. Is your little one doing the Halloween thing yet? Is she asking about princess costumes and stuff like that?
No, no, not yet. And I'm not dressing up myself either. I think I'm scary enough as I am when looking in the mirror, so it's fine like this.
I'd love to see you in a princess costume. That would be kind of cool. Actually, Shane had on his princess costume. I'll let Shane speak to that. Anyway, okay, and of course we've got the Duke of Albuquerque driving the bus here this morning and noticed, I did broiler chicken show and I totally screwed up the post. Thank heavens we have Kevin around here, sort of making sure YouTube feeds and stuff are all correct and videos are posted and stuff. So how you doing this morning, Kevin?
I'm doing great, thanks. Hey, everybody.
Awesome.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. It's just an added benefit to have Kevin here, just holding my hand through all this, or I end up screwing this stuff up. So, thank
I'm
you.
happy to be here. It's so
Yeah,
fun for me.
you're awesome. Well, hey, if work can be fun, then that's a double bonus. Okay, so like I said, it is Monday. Probably don't want to do like a ridiculously long rant. But just an FYI for the site community and level 1ers in particular. But on that video that I did yesterday, the broiler chickens, I actually spent better part of an hour. And I'm not even quite sure how I see this, but do I go like this? But I spent a better part of an hour on this video yesterday talking about the fear and greed assets. Why are the fear assets called the fear assets? Why are the greed assets called the greed assets? Just sort of explain. Somebody had asked risk on, risk off. That's what I was talking about. Thank you, Joshua. So, it's a good hour-long lecture. So if you want some added sort of learning material, be sure to check that out. And as well, I spent... okay, on the way to church. Oh, God. And at church, Jesus said, why are you so concerned about money? Weekly W's. Oh, that's what he said. Okay, forget it. Sorry. All right, anyway. I don't want to get too derailed here, but I just wanted to mention did some good work yesterday, and that was almost like 2-hour video. So please, if you want some detailed analysis of what I see happening in the corn and stuff like that, feel free to check that out. But it being Monday morning, and I really like the idea of the TRI team all working sort of in conjunction to give you our sort of collective sort of perception of the market. And then also too, we've been on this 2-year journey of building this website out. And, for whatever it's worth, and Sjord's here, you should probably hear this. I get a lot of feedback that people really love the work that you're doing. But it is a long and very slow process, so I think it's a good idea for the community that we bring Sjord on once a week and just sort of give an update. How is the site evolution, construction, development going, and are there any things that Sjord could use some help on from the community? So, Mr. Sjord, I got sort of a double whammy here for you. Not only would I love to see how your site development project is going and if we can help you out at all, but also, too, I think Sjord's coming along as a very, he is coming along as his own trader. He's unique, very personal perspective. He likes the tools that he's worked with over the past few years, and I think it's a refreshing sort of, other perspective of the market, and I really like listening to what he's thinking. So, Mr. Sjord, with all that build-up, do you feel like doing one of those screen share kind of things this morning?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. So I click on you, and I see your handsome mug. Do you want to do one of those screen share things?
Yeah, it should be presenting now.
All right, so we will throw Sjord on the screen. There is he. He's such a handsome guy. And then we want to go on to his presentation, which I think is this button. Let's see. There we go. Yay. Okay, so Mr. Sjord, you've got the floor. Tell us what's on your mind this morning, and how can we help you make this an awesomest play trading? Awesome. Go!
So over the past week I did some more fixes in the admin section that's not visible. And what I worked on together with some help now is the screeners. And not just the screeners for TOI, so not the default screeners, but the possibility to make your own screeners. It's not finished yet, but we're getting close to the end now. And my big goal for this year really is to finish everything that has to do with screeners. So I hope in a few daily briefs that I can show you guys. Well, next week I will promise at least a screenshot of what we're doing. And then in a few daily briefs I hope that I can present the beta, where you can build your own screeners with your own conditions based on the broader market. And these are all technical screeners, but we in the backend we're working on changes with our data provider. So we already have the data for fundamental data. We have the stock data. We have the indicators. We have the patterns. So we have everything. Just throwing it together now. So that's the process that we are in at the moment. At the same time, what we did was we continued the path of making the user entity smaller. It's another backend stuff, but we're basically extracting all PayPal information, Rocket Chat information, and all other user-related information from the user entity, making the platform more scalable towards the future. And what else did we do? Well, that was basically my week, mostly screeners. And then I saw that Brian did a nice trade, and it's being reported on the trades page that I'm sharing now. Something that you can keep an eye on as well is that we start filling in these trading plans and start to work more with reporting trades, both from Julie and Brian and myself. And now that we're back in the outcome market and taking positions, it's an excellent time to start building those plans so that we can report it to you guys once the entire market goes insane again. So then we will have our trades a bit more structured than in the past. So instead of a big long list, you will be able to see the Altengenate or the LOL portfolio or whatever. So that's also something that we will work on.
Awesome.
As for the market, I did some. I mean, I didn't watch the latest Bitcoin show yet, but man, the chart that I keep seeing is this fat balance sheet. Did you talk a lot about that already, Brian?
No, I haven't.
Oh man, and I keep hearing this in podcasts as well, different podcasts. Is it basically that the Fed is creating this money out of thin air again? But what really worrisome is that the amount that they created in the past few weeks succeeds the amount of the total Bitcoin market cap. And I just keep thinking about this, like the Fed is creating this money in 2-3 weeks time, and it's more than the entire Bitcoin market cap at the moment. That's so crazy. And what's even more worrisome is that if we zoom out a bit, it's like this was the trend for the past few years, and you can see that the quantitative easing program that the Fed was doing, they were basically taking out the balance again, so they were normalizing what they did over the past few years. And now in the few weeks we had this jump, and the only time earlier that we had this jump was right in 2008. So I heard a Dutch podcast, and there's a gentleman there, Will Middelkoop, and he talks a lot about the crisis, and he's already basically saying that the crisis of the financial system already started with this happening at the moment, and that the potential of Bitcoin really is like unlimited big because of what's happening now with what the Fed is doing. And I just keep thinking, what if the Fed just keeps ramping up these numbers, and what the consequences will be for Bitcoin? I mean, we did see that jump, and mostly we think, of course, it's because of China. But we don't need that much of events happening to see Bitcoin doing these moves over and over again. Is what I'm thinking. If the sellers are gone. And what I really want to go with this here is like, I want to know how you guys see what the Fed is doing at the moment, and if this is being noticed at all. Because I just see them use terms to hide what they're doing. Quantitative easing, I mean, it sounds awesome, but it kind of hides what they're doing. That's just printing money out of thin air, giving it to the banks buying long-term bonds that they can't get rid of on the stock market. And the thing that Will Middelkoop also said is what's going to happen once Wall Street basically loses the trust in what's happening at the moment. So I do see that there's things in the financial system now starting to blow up. And one thing that this guy also said on the podcast that I really liked is that they said, well, I don't see a crisis like in 2008 happening. And the reason for that is that they already, how do you call it, when the fire trucks pull out of the building. So the fire trucks are already in place and the hoses are already rolled out, and the only thing that they have to do is basically turn open the water hoses and let the water go on the fire to extinguish the thing what's happening, and that's just by printing money, by letting that flood over. So yeah, I was just looking a bit for more feedback on this from other guys and other members. So I would love to hear what you guys are thinking. And I mean, it's a bit of a confusing story maybe from my side now. I realize that now I'm hearing myself talking, but that's just because I'm feeling a bit under the weather today. So sorry for that, but I hope I got my point across. And the basic subject is, well, the Fed is printing more money than the entire market cap in 2-3 weeks' time. So what does that mean for our economy, and what could that possibly mean for Bitcoin and all the other altcoins? So I'm going to keep a close eye on this Fed balance sheet and see how it's going to develop the coming weeks, because I think that will be really telling about the not so far distant future of the economy behavior.
Yeah, well, looking at that chart, just the first thing that jumps out at me was that was a narrow, like what we call a narrow sideways channel, that M off the top there. I think
this one. This one.
Yeah, that
this one.
Yeah, that one there. And that was a pretty precipitous drop, and I think I mentioned this yesterday. I don't think the bankers and the people that were running the system really like the idea of taking interest rates down to nothing. I don't think they like the idea of, just exploding the Fed's balance sheet. I think they wanted to try and quote unquote normalize things as quickly as possible, because really,
yeah,
the short-term interest rate policy, that is technically the Fed's tool. So it feels to me like they were almost in a rush to try and get the system back to sort of quote unquote normal.
And that's what you see in Europe, right? I mean, the only tool that they have with the rates, that's basically gone now. Now that's near zero.
And now you've got this Lagarde in here, and she's not even a banker. So who knows what the hell she's going to do.
Yeah.
And if anything, when I look at this chart, the first thing that jumps out at me is that was a pretty big drop from 4.5 down to 3.76 there. So should we expect a technical bounce? It would actually be really interesting to throw on a fib of those levels and just see where 38.2 is, and are we approaching that now on this sort of dead cat bounce? So that's the first thing that sort of jumps out at me. And then I would just simply say, do we start seeing W's in this data to start to validate the idea that this thing is actually not a correction of this big down move, but more actually like a trend. The market's actually trending higher. So, and also too, I would just simply say that, and I saw this in the 1980 situation. The world economy is in far, far worse shape than the U.S. economy. So, you might have, like on this graphic here, you might have the Fed's balance sheet go right back up to like 4.2, 4.25, 4.3. In fact, just like we just saw on Bitcoin, I think you could actually make the argument that we should sort of test the underside of that sort of narrow sideways channel, which would be all the way up at 4.4. It's interesting that you mentioned that they basically expanded their balance sheet by more than the market cap of Bitcoin. I think it's a cute analogy. I don't know whether it's I've made this, and the whole point of the school program to begin with was, when I first got into this space, people were actually seriously considering that Bitcoin was going to replace the U.S. dollar. And I was just like, come on, guys, it's completely unrealistic. We might be slowly moving towards that, but if anything, your comment there about how the Fed can change their balance sheet by the entire market cap of Bitcoin in like a week should just illustrate how big the money market is. I mean, it's massive.
Yeah. But at the same time, it also shows the still potential of Bitcoin, I think.
Right. I mean, good point there, where, what would it actually have to take for Bitcoin to actually get up into the neighborhood where it could start competing with these? And your point is perfectly valid. Bitcoin would have to be substantially higher. Interesting conversation. I'll be curious, like I said, I'll be really curious to see, after the smoke and dust settles, do we still have repo action going on in the market here over the next week? Was that what we saw there at the end of the summer? Was that just a bit of a sort of seasonality? All the pros are in the Hamptons. Nobody's really doing any real business. I get the feeling that was a bit of a head fake sort of trap there at the end of the summer. We'll see what happens, but the real tell here will be that if things calm down in the money market, we go down and we test those lows, and the Fed's like, okay, let's try and clean up the balance sheet again. Let's try and reduce the amount of the size of our balance sheet. Yeah. If they go back down and test that low, and then they have to come racing back in and throw a bunch of more new money at the market, then we know that, there's a real problem down there at about, what is that, about 3.6, 3.7 on your chart.
So I'm just going to keep an eye on this.
Yeah, and, absolutely. It's good
update on the daily brief, and try to get a more cohesive, better sounding story.
It'd be really cool is to get that data set and then throw on our 13 EMA, 30 SMA relationship. Because I can just see in that data set that those moving averages would have rolled over and crossed bearish probably somewhere sort of mid-2018 there. And so now the question is, do we, like I said, it's going to take some time. If this is going to be trending back up and all hell's going to break loose here in the market, then, I think this thing's going to need just a bit more time.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Do you want to do a little sort of what am I seeing out of Bitcoin? Because it was interesting. You were kind of feeling uppy there a little while ago.
Yeah. Okay. Let's quickly take a look at the Bitcoin chart. Let me do this one. Let me first zoom in on what we see at the moment on the 1 hour. So I haven't looked actually today. I saw the news about Bitcoin jumping. Was it Friday? I believe it was Friday.
Yeah.
And I was just perfectly fine with that because of the dollar cost averaging strategy. I can really recommend it to everyone. I just felt so relaxed. I'm like, oh, well, good. I'm positioned long already. The next day, of course, my dollar cost averaging bought the top.
No.
But I shouldn't look at that. And I'm just like, well, at least I'm in time for the next move up. So that's always good news when you dollar cost averaging. And what I'm seeing with the on the 1 hour, basically, if we go way back before the move, so we have the RSI here, crossing back in, nothing really happened, crossing back out, crossing back in, and then it's basically confirmed that it wanted to go up by taking out this mid-level, and then the third push up. So there was a lot of momentum, and basically 3 tells of the market that it wanted to go. And you can see here, this is where I would have been taken out of my position again. So I would have missed this big move up, but that's fine. And this is on the 1 hour, of course. And now you can see that we got an M here, crossing back down, crossing back down, crossing back down. So we're losing territory here. But what's more interesting is that you see this pressure building, like the same that it did here. So my hunch is that we will get a nice correction. For now, I'm thinking down, but it will be more violent than what we had over the past few weeks, that we were so like sideways, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Because we have this pressure building now. Now, if you look on the higher time frames, because this is 1 hour, right? And you see again here the 4 hour. If you would have been trading the 4 hour, this is where I would have been out, which would have been a better place to get out. And now you see that we have this broad channel on the 4 hour. So what I want to see here is either a cross of, and it's get a lot. Okay, how do I remove all my drawing tools again? There we go. Because it gets a bit messy. So here I wanted to see a cross down or a bounce up. But as you can see, the MACD, it flipped over, it made an M. We had a divergence on the MACD, a confirmed divergence. The really is not stupidly overbought, but it's a bit high. So my hunch for now is still down here, at least a retracement.
Do you say divergence because you're looking at the close of those bars? Why
Sorry, I'm looking at the close for the divergence. So I should probably do it like this.
Yeah, there you go.
And then it's a bit more clear.
Yeah.
So this divergence, I mean, with the confirmation over here.
Yeah.
With this M here.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so we have that there on the MACD and on the RSI and an M on the RSI. Now, if you zoom a little bit up, and I'm doing this on purpose, going from the lower time frame to the higher time frame because I have to be following it myself that much. And then what I see on the higher time frame is that the RSI moved out of the band and it's curling down now. And well, I don't really expect it to bounce back here. So I'm basically waiting for it to cross down again and do some price discovery lower. And if that happens, then we will also have an M in the rally. And I just want the market to calm down. So at this place, at this position, there's really nothing for me to do than to wait. I can justify a long here. I can justify a short here. Mm-hmm. So it's just in waiting mode for me. Mm-hmm. On the 1 hour, I already missed the trade if I wanted to go short. On the 4 hour, I missed the trade to go short. But we can cross this and then I will consider a new short trade. And on the daily, there's nothing left at the moment to go short of either. So I'm just in waiting mode basically. So that's what I'm seeing for Bitcoin at the moment.
Well, that makes sense. I'd probably have to agree with you. I mean, nobody at TRI should look at that 3 or 4 bar action and say, this is a buy signal here. I mean, you're way, way, way too late.
And then at the same time, if we now would come back down and jump up here, I would love that. And then I would take a bit of a bigger position outside of my dollar cost averaging, I think. Mm-hmm. Because this is a pretty significant level.
So that's a weekly chart you got on there now, eh?
Yeah, this is now the weekly chart. And you can see we made that little W.
Have we? I can't see your white line there. Did it? And have we crossed through it? What are we doing there? So we're like battling at it right now. Eh?
Yeah, sitting on top of it. So you can see that here we cross back in the channel. And this is not the ideal bearish action I want to see because of this skewed M. Then I would love to see an M like, that's bad drawing. But anyway, to have the first top higher than the second top and then drop in it. This is a nice W for me, and the question now is what will we do here? The same on the daily. Are we going to cross down or are we going to bounce off now? So
I do like that because I was speaking yesterday to the idea that maybe we have a bullish continuation pattern happening here. It's still a little bit early for us to, and when I do my rant here, I'll show you the bot levels. But I do like this because what this, I think if I understand this correctly, The weeklies are sitting right at an interesting pivot. And
Yes.
if we can consolidate here a little bit, put in some sort of base, and if the market can lift higher here and we get confirmation off the lower time frames, I think what that would do is that's going to validate this battle that's going on here on the weekly charts. And if we go into face rip mode, you can see the upper band on Sjord's study here. It's all the way up in the 80s right now, eh?
Yeah, and on the weekly you can also see this 3.5. So one cross here, one cross here, another cross here, and then basically we cross down here and we cross down here.
Yeah.
So I mean, this was the bullish move for me.
Yeah. Well, look at the price chart.
Yeah,
that was a bull.
Sorry. It's of course easy to look back now, but what I'm trying to say is that you could see the power coming in here.
Yeah.
Before it got released, and you can also see this tension here of this channel.
Yeah.
And now it's just very wide.
Yeah.
So I think we got some resting to do here before setting up a new move.
Ooh, I like that analysis. I wonder how we could articulate all that, what you just said there. That was cool. So, if we can ever release the CTO from Rocket Chat Nightmare, maybe one day Sjord will put together sort of a step-by-step, this is how I use RSI with Bollinger Bands. And I like that sort of thinking that there's like different stages of bulls and bears. And just correct, and also the width of the bands telling you a little bit about market state there. That's great stuff, Sjord. Really, really good stuff.
It's just such a versatile indicator if you do it like this, the RSI with the Bollinger Bands.
Totally. And again, hopefully everybody who's watching this, please understand there is a million different ways to skin this cat. And this is one reason why I really like having on my partners here, is that they have a very unique, very personal way of looking at the market. And I love this. I think this is super valuable for the community. So excellent work, sir. Yeah, really appreciate it. Okay, do you want to comment on your stock indexes, or shall we leave that for today? We're already about halfway through the broadcast here.
Yeah, sorry, I took a bit more time than the usual side update.
Yeah, dude, you take as much time as you want. We love to hear the Lego man.
I will do that, Colleen.
Okay, cool. So it sounds to me like Sjord has said his piece. I don't mean to step on your toes. If there's anything else that's on your mind, please feel free.
No, I'm going for dinner, and I will leave you guys up to it, and then
have an awesome panacook, and we will. And I don't know whether I'm allowed to say it or not, but I'm just going to say it anyway. Congratulations, sir. Another mini Sjord is on its way. And I'm very proud of you. You're an awesome dad. And,
I'm bullish on diapers at the moment.
We should go buy our diaper futures. Good one.
That's insider trading.
All right, sir. On that note, thank you very much. We will pop back on over to Brian's screen here. Just give me a second.
And I will throw in the chart.
And actually, Colleen specifically asked a couple questions here this morning, so why don't we take the opportunity now and speak to her. So you're going to furnish Colleen with an answer to her question there? Mr. Sjord? I guess Mr. Sjord.
Yes, about the charts, yes.
Okay, cool. Colleen asked earlier today whether we could just walk through the logic of this Syscoin idea. As you saw from the video that Sjord on here, and if you had seen on the site, did a little bit of buying on Syscoin over the weekend. This was an idea actually first put forth by Kevin, and frankly speaking, everything here seems to be fairly logical, fairly straightforward with what we do here at TRI. I think you could make the argument. First and foremost, aside from that one candle here, maybe we change it to a line chart. Oh no, that's not even. Okay, there we go. Is it in our best interest as risk takers to come in against W's like this with this kind of big move? Is there any potential for us to actually make any money? And I think everybody should start off their sort of their approach to the market. Institutions buy down markets, and we're trying to teach you guys how to act like institutions. So right off the bat, you should look at this and go, gee whiz, there is some room for this thing to move up here. As well, too, what I absolutely love, and I think this especially this latter part of 2019, this is, to me, it just feels like this is throwing the baby out with the bathwater. If we zoom out a little bit more, ironically enough, this was sort of like 2018. All right, maybe we've bottomed. Nope, one more punch in the nose. But you guys tell me, on balance, is money flowing into this asset or is money flowing out of this asset through this bear market? To me, it doesn't look like money is flowing out. It looks like money is flowing in. This OBV index study just keeps slowly working its way higher. So that's sort of one thing that really caught my attention when I saw this. I suppose if we kind of like what Sior did there, zoom out to a little bit higher time frame, you can again see that OBV divergence. Nice W's came in, really nice and stupid. W's in things like momentum oscillators. Actually, it might be interesting to see. I'm not quite sure why. Oh, maybe it's just because it's really dark. There we go. So if we look at something like the relative strength index, where's the little drawing tool? Oh, well. Okay, you're not cooperating. What is going on here? All right, well, yeah, let's refresh this. I'm seeing signs of bullish divergence. Yeah, no, this is fine. So, and I don't know whether this is the best chart. Maybe the Trex chart has a little bit more data. There we go. So, we're down at the bottom end of the range. We're back at the POC. Is there any room for this thing to move up? I think so. We look at things like your relative strength index. And I love when, if we go, is it this one? Nope, not that one. Over here, this one. There we go. Higher lows and higher highs. We also have two W's. That's kind of cool. We're nowhere near midpoint, right? Midpoint would be somewhere up in this area. That was probably that run against those highs. Just looking at the basic sort of trend and momentum. Might be interesting to put on Sjord's Bollinger Bands on this. I think there's sort of your primary trend and momentum. There's like a secondary trend. I suppose we could probably start seeing things like that. But there's lots of room to move around here. And technically, this weekly chart, we are technically on a weekly basis oversold. So I certainly like the look of that from a longer term perspective. And going back to the dailies, put back on the candle chart. You can see lower lows, higher lows. So actually, there's a really good example of the daily divergence we like to see. And actually, even this high was taken out over here. So we do have signs of momentum divergence. Didn't really get anything solid out of MACD. We got close, but no real breakout. There's actually a beautiful div right there. So the market is giving us signs that, especially through this, that price isn't nearly as weak as what price would lead you to believe. You just never know in this game what's going to happen. But, you know, like, I think I've told you guys before, I love, like, when we weekly W. And, you know, going back to that weekly chart, you're going to have to really zoom in here, but hopefully everybody can see down, up, down, breakout, top. We kind of stalled at the breakout point, and this is why I really like, if I'm going to take a shot on these things, I mean, you could just go and buy the W. I mean, really, I wouldn't have a problem. And you know, while we were sort of talking the past week or two, I was kind of like, geez, I want to get some of this on the books, but I just don't know where. You know, if we go off of clotheslines, you can see that W is pretty well defined. So I could have pulled the trigger just off of the W and just said, you know what, I'm just going to live with this range. But I actually decided that I wanted to be a little bit crisper on this. And actually, you know, for you guys, I really want to be the demonstrator of best practices. So I just simply said, look, I don't know whether this thing, I mean, in the short term, as it was coming down here, I didn't know where it was going to pivot. I really like the idea. There's a cheeky little gap right here. I don't know whether you guys can see that or not. And this is why it's really handy to go and grab Sen's gaps script. And then that way it'll just quickly validate whether there is a gap on your charts. But hopefully you can see right off of Mountain Man there's a cheeky little gap that needed filling in. And then there was also these gaps down here, right? Notice there's this gap here. This gap's been filled in by this body, but this gap's open, and there's even cheeky little gaps down here. So I like the idea of identifying these levels. And like I said, I didn't have any outright buy signal as price was screaming down into here. So I just simply said, look at, I don't know exactly where this thing is going to turn. I do have some great levels. We already have a W in here. I could just go and buy the W level and just say, you know what, enough's enough. And I did that on that storage, right? It's basically the same logic, but on the storage, I just went and pulled the trigger at the W, right? And look at this crazy ass action. I mean, I could have done exactly the same thing on this storage. Notice had I worked some stink bids in reload zones, I would have gotten some juicy fills in here. In this case, I just went and bought the W, which is fine. I mean, again, it's going to mean a bigger risk window. Could I have exercised a little bit of patience and just said, look at, you know, I want to buy reload zones. I want to buy the bottom of value and just work my bids in here? Sure, could have. And so I said just a moment ago, you know, in this particular case, I just bought the W and said, look at, if we break this low, and I do find this low kind of suspicious, 1, 2, 3, 4. It almost feels like that was painted on purpose. I was more than happy if I was going to buy this W just to say, look, I'm going to risk against this. And sure enough, look at the tail here. Came down to 1, 2, 6, 0. And then they said, no, not so fast. So I could have done, Colleen, can you see how this exact same trade that I just did on the CIS? It could have been exactly the same thing here on storage. Does that make sense? You know, in this storage example, I just bought the W. Yeah, big deal. On the CIS, because the W was a little bit far away, I didn't really want to chase up here. And so I was like, okay, I'll just throw in some bids in reload zone. Let's see if I can get some fills. As I had pointed out, I thought it was off of this chart, but I guess I got rid of it. I got 2 out of the 3 orders filled here. So Mr. Mountain Man's order, he was filled in. The midpoint of the reload zone was filled, and the only order that's sort of left working here is still 78.6. And as I said, and really, just try. No, well, so that's it, Colleen. I kind of, we had our TRI meetup there through the summer, and I had to move, and I got into a car accident, and oh my God, things just piled on me, and I kind of lost my professionalism there on those two little alts that I picked up. They weren't big purchases, but not the best demonstrator of best practices for you guys. I will fully, and even at that TRI meetup, I said, let's challenge ourselves to be excellent at this. And so I was very disappointed in the way that I acted through the Doge and the BTT for you guys. So I've made a firm commitment to you guys that if these do fail and they lose these lows, the 1, 2, 3, 4 on the storage or SIS here at 202, then I'm just going to walk away from these trades and try and be the demonstrator of best practices for you guys. So just an FYI what I'm doing here, and frankly speaking, I don't know what's going to happen. It's a trader's life. You just live by the sword, die by the sword. So, Colleen, did that help you there? Did that answer those questions? I know she was specifically asking about that. Yes, a bit. Is there a specific question that you had that I'm not addressing? Could you nanny nibble these ideas? Absolutely. Totally you could. No doubt about it. I think there's nothing wrong with nanny nibbling. The only problem that I've sort of run into over the past couple of years is I don't think people really understand nanny nibbling, in that you got to basically say, look, I'm putting a really, really small portion of my portfolio into this name. I like the idea. I like the fundamentals, and I'm just going to sit on this name. And it might be underwater for a while. And I just don't think a lot of people who got involved with nanny nibbles really understood that. And it kind of disappointed me. So, could you nanny nibble this? Absolutely. In fact, almost all of these altcoins, in my opinion, are in areas where nanny nibbles are perfectly fine, in my opinion. Looking at yours and Kevin's charts, I see you set a fib and bought at the RLZ of the W, but I did not see the 3 reasons, only RLZ and structure. Okay, well, RLZ would be trade location. Structure would be W's. We kind of showed you all those sort of anecdotal signs of divergence there. You can just simply say, just zoom out. Are we in an acceptable location to take a risk? And ironically enough, can you see the POC here, Colleen? That could be a reason. Location. Right up against the old bottom of the range. That could be your location. And as I said there a minute ago, when we did all the... what am I doing here? Financials? What the hell is that nonsense? Is that a new button TradingViews come up with? I don't know. Hopefully you can see big W's in the momentum oscillators. I can understand off the daily chart, you look at this and go, but where are your divergences that you really want us hunting? I could see you saying, I don't see that, Brian. I think I actually like the divergence message. Do you see, Colleen, how we have this low here, this low is higher than this low? We actually put in a double bottom here. Notice this pullback here is higher than this low. Didn't get the breakout here. But again, this low is higher than this low. So we're just slowly, consistently making higher lows. I do understand that we've kind of emmed out here a bit, though. So I could see where you say, maybe I'm just going to take a bit of pause on this. You want to wait for a nice little sign, maybe like Davos, W's in price and volume oscillators to help you time your purchasing here a little bit better. Perfectly fine. Maybe you're like, well, Brian, I love the reload zone concept, but I'm not going to just blindly buy. I'm just going to wait for a polite W to come in here, and then I'll buy. Perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with that at all. Because I've been doing this game so long, I'm okay. Like, I would call these stink bids, where I just throw in a bunch of bids, and I'm comfortable with that trade. But if you as an individual say, look, I just can't buy when the market's screaming down like this, I have to see some sort of signs that, yep, we have actually turned and we're heading back higher, I'm totally fine with that too. Really, it's just a function of, what's going to keep the hair on the top of your head. What's going to keep you from going gray. And if this kind of blind trade that technically is just open-ended, if that's just too much risk and too much anxiety for you, then just leave it alone. You don't have to do it. You might even say, Brian, I love that LJ idea, so I'm going to wait for a nice trend line break of this M, and I'm going to wait for a W on the other side of it. So maybe you're going to just be waiting for something like that. Perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with that at all. Okay, so hopefully that's just a quick walkthrough to help Colleen understand why Brian was interested in taking this trade here. Quick overview of the broader market. We're coming up on the top of the hour. Quite surprised how quickly these hours go, but broader market, we've been sort of talking about this late last week. Was there going to be some sort of FU move against these highs? Mr. Trump can come out and say, look, stock market's at new highs. I'm so wonderful. Look at me. I'm still concerned whether we can actually cleanly break through. There's a ton of resistance up in here. And this megaphone line that you see on here, that's sort of sitting right at this daily 113 level. So color me skeptical, but I do kind of think that they've pulled off another beautiful FU, taken the market to new highs, cleaned out all the shorts, and of course lots and lots of gaps to the downside to fill in. We were going to have Jamie on the call here today, but I guess he's MIA. But I wouldn't mind getting sort of an update what the heck's going on with Brexit. Is it back on hold now again? I saw that I just quickly heard, and of course I don't quite understand UK politics, but the Labour Party representative said that they would not support a no-deal Brexit. So I'm not quite sure what the hell that means. But if I understand correctly, okay, so the scuttlebutt is we've kicked the can now down to January 31st. Wonderful. So all of that and a big hurry up and do nothing. We sort of talked a little bit about that recently, and this is, I guess, a bit of sort of an underlying concern for me. Is did we see the British pound and the euro all jump up there in anticipation that we're going to get a deal done? And now that everything's been kicked the can down the road another 4 months, do they all sort of roll back over and head back down? We've been watching, here is the British pound. You can see it's got a bit of a fractal top working now. Not really the cleanest breakdown yet. I don't know whether do we have euro on here somewhere? There's the euro. It looks like it's already started its correction. So I think you could make the argument that we're slowly working our way down. We've come back to 38.2s now. Interesting how Algo actually went uber bear there on that breakdown. I do like the idea that if you wanted to consider shorting the euro now that the European Central Bank is out of the way, Drahi is an old name now. End of the month he'll be gone. I think you could actually make the argument. Pretty interesting trade level coming up here on the euro. Up top here, 111 area, that kind of idea. So we will definitely consider that. And then, of course, if you want to buy euros, that's all the way down here. So we'll keep those levels on the chart going forward. I think on balance, risk on, risk off kind of conversations. Where's my risk on, risk off? There it is. Stocks jumping, Bitcoin jumping. So interesting how those two are moving in conjunction. Oil looks to me like it actually has hit a bit of upside resistance here. We had a downtrend line off of this peak to that peak. It's still potential. It hasn't been validated, so it's still just floating out there. But I think the market is really respecting it right now. And you can see how we came into that level first thing this morning, right on the open. Tagged it, and now we're backing off here. And that's after that AB equals CD finished. So, I suppose there's a little bit of room for gaps to be filled up top here, but I do like the idea that maybe oil has, we're back at the POC. Hogue's going to be sitting up here at this gap and up here. The original market structure fail level. I'm sure there's going to be lots of guys that'd be more than happy to short up here. Ironically enough, with the oil actually backing off, that means that, maybe the stock market, you can see we're kind of starring our way here. Maybe we have to back off a bit and not be at such a torrid pace. I put these words right over top of all the levels when I first load up the screen in the morning. So you can see oil's come back a little bit more. Stocks have also come back a bit. Bitcoin's just sort of treading water there, kind of like what Sjord said. And you can see these markets. And remember we were talking about this last week. I did like the idea of the gold market moving up, maybe a little bit of relief rally, but in the face of that oh boy, that is really difficult. And you can see the yen is cleanly broken through those lows. So yen is in full retreat here right now. And then, of course, look at my bonds. And the one good trade I did over the past month or so is buying those bond puts up here. So bonds are feeling, that trade's feeling very sexy. But as you can see, gold's perked up just a little bit up here. And the bonds have perked up a little bit here. But on balance, hey, way to go, Joshua. Nice. Maybe this down move in the risk-off assets is getting a little bit old. Maybe this up move in the risk-on assets is getting a little bit old. And kind of like what Sjord said, I mean, is this kind of move in Bitcoin, is that sustainable? I don't know. That's a tough one. If at the very least, if this is sort of a AB of an AB equals CD, I sure would like to see a little bit of consolidation in here to set up the next move higher. Like I said, bonds feeling pretty good. They're not feeling good. They're heading down. But I do like that short trade, and I'm not really in a big hurry to do anything there. Yen broke to new lows, and, again, another big shout out to Julian. Again, love having the different perspectives of Sjord and Julian on the call. I think this is super valuable for you guys. We've been working together now for a few years. Great to see Sjord's working through the level 2 material, getting really good at that stuff, so that's encouraging. But got to give a shout out to Julian again. On Friday when I did the videos, I gave a shout out to him because he said that he wanted to fade this rally up to 1510 to 1520 area. And you can see the gold's come off even a bit more. So, hats off, Julian. Nice thinking there. You never know what the hell's going to happen in the future. There's a cheeky little gap here down at 1480 area that needs filling in. But if this thing plays catch up with the yen and the bonds, I mean, gee whiz, this thing could crap out big time here. But probably in the short term, I could just as easily as people went in and shorted against all these wicks. I suppose I could see a bit of support coming in at this gap, at these trend lines, and of course against these tails. But, like I said just a moment ago, Julian basically said, look, I'm going to be shorting up here, and that trade looks like it was excellent. Really, really nice. Way to go, Julian. Nothing really out of my sort of toolkit to get too excited about. I'm watching these blockchain companies, and obviously that just looks like an absolute mess. I got to let that settle down a little bit. Did notice, and if anything, I really like when you get charts that just make these nice wide turns like this. So this is a retailer in sort of the home furnishing sort of industry, and I keep hearing that the housing industry seems very positive. I mean, hopefully everybody looks at this and sees W's, and okay, well, I can understand why Beamish is interested in this. And, of course, if we zoom out, what do you think, guys? Is there any room for profit potential here? Any at all? Is it worth taking the risk? I mean, hopefully you guys are at the point now at TRI where you're just like, I can see. Yeah, there's no guarantees what's going to happen here. Everybody knows that. But if I go in and buy this level and risk against these lows and let this thing breathe a little bit, does it have some room to move up here? I think so. So that's sort of the market state that I kind of think a lot of names are in right now. I do have a couple puts on the books for the S&P 500, but I'll tell you, I'm seeing a lot of stocks that look very uppy here. There was another one that I recently bought. This is a shout out to, fortunately it's got all this writing all over it. Same sort of logic. I mean, can you see the W's? Hopefully you guys start going, oh, gee whiz, this just sounds like a broken record. And does this thing have any room to move up? David Davis posted this in the lounge, and sorry for all the writing on this chart, but hopefully you guys can see what would get Brian interested in something like this, right? Hopefully you see the W, and yeah, I went and picked up a little bit of stock there. There was one name that gee whiz, here comes another shipping stock. What do you think, guys? Do you see why Brian might be interested in a name like this? Fortunately, I can't really chase this. It's gone up way too far, way too fast. But, kind of like that CIS. If we get any pullbacks down into support, I'll definitely be interested. So, that's sort of the state of stock market. Man, I sure love these shipping stocks. They look so good. If you missed Kevin's stock, man, there's another one. I mean, you tell me. Is there any room for this thing to move up at all here? It's ridiculous. So, and we are coming to the end of the seasonally weak period in the stock market. So get ready, folks. I don't know what's going to happen here. Mr. Trump, orange hair. Maybe we're all going to get rich in the stock market. Who knows? So that's sort of the state of stock market. Just to finish off, as we started yesterday at length, I talked about the Bitcoin market, and I sort of left off yesterday with I do like the idea that markets never move in one direction indefinitely, and usually, the market, ironically enough, probably wants to get up here. But the question is, how do we get from here to here? And what the market has to do is this sort of stair-steppy pattern where, on this move, of course, they blasted all the shorts, and that's a lot of that short covering rally. But once we get up to this area here, probably the whole market is long. Everybody's long. All the kids, FOMO, I gotta buy. So you got to go through a period where you have to sort of balance out the order book. And I think that's basically what this is. if this is a continuation pattern and we're going to work our way higher, gee whiz, what a coincidence. Do you guys see how the market sort of stalled out there right at that bot level? I mean, I often look back in hindsight and go, that's remarkable. Was this pre-planned? So that's sort of what I see happening here. And of course, Brian 3 lows. So we got one now. Ideally, I'd like to see a second. Then I'd like to see a third. And should we get that kind of action, then we can start thinking continuation. So still sort of just sitting on pause, just sort of watching this. And, Sjord showed you on the site that we do have Brian's bot tab in here. So if that bot comes in, I'll make a promise to all of you that I'm going to try really, really hard to figure out how Sjord wants me to do this, to see if we can start filling out some of these trading plan entries. I want to add like Little Old Lady Nanny Nibbles. I want to add El Tangonator. So there's more setups here to come in. And, I suppose hindsight 2020, we'll throw the Doge into Nanny Nibbles, but the storage and the sys would both be sort of El Tangonator notation. So don't be surprised if through the week you hear me talk about bot trade ideas coming in, and I'm going to try really hard to do that post for you guys. So, okay, so nothing really dramatic to report on things like the day trading models. Market was pointing higher overnight. There was a long signal that came in halfway through yesterday, but then it stalled out about 7 hours later. So we never did get any continuation back to the upside here. So I also noticed too, and I kind of like the idea that, when the hourly institutional moving averages roll over bearish, maybe I just go on pause. So for this morning, I've just been sort of just, twiddling my thumbs. Not really too active there either. Okay, so that should give you basically an idea of what I'm looking at in the market. And then I'll just finish off one last thought. I'm not quite sure where I have it. I'm really interested, actually, after a very, very long period of us being extremely concerned, cautious about things like the Australian currency. I think there's actually a trade developing here. So we were up there in the 80, 81 area. We came all the way down to 66. So, 50% rules alone, we should probably be thinking something like 74. Interesting, cute little double bottom you can see forming here. Interesting also, too, and, this is going to be the subject of the level tours over the next few weeks, commitments to traders. You notice that as the market was coming down, commercials were long, expecting the market to come down. You can see the commercials have slowly emmed out here and are, unwinding that bullish thinking. And at the exact same time, to facilitate the trade, the institutions were short, enjoying this. And you can see they're starting to clean up their balance sheet, and you see a pretty well-defined W coming in here. So I am very interested in Australian dollar here. I think, from a trade, and I'll take a look at the options as we go through here, but, I'm going to be really laser beam focused to concentrate on any kind of long setups off of things like daily charts down in those tails. So, just be aware of that. Of course, I'm always interested in different markets, and, if there's an opportunity to make money, Brian's going to be really interested in that. So I'm going to be watching the tests, because clearly you can see massive massive tail. The market's not really too interested in going lower here. You can see the volume profile, not much volume there. So is it worthwhile for us to maybe take a look at, well, that's not what I wanted. Take a look at some calls, maybe like the 70-cent calls or something like that for the new year. And let's see if we can sneak our way in on maybe like a eating of this tail down here. So there's an idea for you to chew on in the Australian dollar. And you can see on the daily charts. It's been a pretty precipitous fall. This is almost exactly like those other markets I was showing you. If we take a little long shot down here, just simply looking for things like, and really my hunch is we're probably going to actually test that high there. But, if this thing does turn for the next couple of years, can we think about 50% retracements going the other direction? That takes us all the way up to 88. My hunch is we're probably going to run into a brick wall of resistance up here at 81. But I'm thinking about buying maybe a 72, 73 cent call, something like that. I'm just looking for a return to the mean. Can we squeak out a TRI SOF on this? So, interesting thought. I saw that this morning as I was going through the commitments to traders reports, and I thought I'd pass that along to you. Okay, we're well past the top of the hour, so I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation. Thank you very much, Sjord. Excellent work as always. Hopefully I've given you some further food for thought. And I think we'll leave it at that. So, all right, have yourselves an awesome rest of your day. Thank you, Colleen, for your appreciation of Sjord's hard work. I'll be in and around the site. Feel free to ask me questions. I do have a couple assignments, setting students' emails up to see videos and stuff. So I will be working away through the morning here on the site. So have yourselves a great day. I'm only a shout away. If you have any questions, all the best. And the only thing left for good old Brian to say at this point is a big bye for now.